I hate stress. I did not come to this world to suffer.
Listen, come closer, let me tell you a story. A story about a girl who wanted comfort so badly, she walked straight into the most beautiful trap ever built. A mansion with marble floors, a husband with a quiet smile, and one locked door that should never have been opened. The day Amara threw the firewood into the mud and screamed, "I did not come to this world to suffer." Everyone in the compound went silent. Amara stood there, dress covered in soot, eyes red and burning, not from smoke, but from tears held back for years. Amara was done. Done with waking before the sun. Done with cracked heels and empty pots. Done with watching other women ride in fine cars while Amara carried water on her head like a burden never chosen. Amara looked down at both hands, rough, calloused, tired, and made a decision deep in that aching heart that would change everything forever. Amara would not die poor. Amara would not live in struggle. Whatever it took, a soft life was coming, and nothing would stop that dream. The compound where Amara and Ada grew up was small but full of love. Their mother, Mama Grace, cooked with firewood every morning and hummed old songs while the smoke curled around her face. Their father, Papa Emeka, was a quiet man who worked hard at his little shop and came home smelling of sawdust and honest sweat. Ada, the younger sister, would sit beside Mama Grace and learn every recipe, every prayer, every lesson with a grateful heart. But Amara sat at the window, watching the road, watching the cars, watching a life that felt just out of reach, and wanting it with every breath. People in the neighborhood called Amara proud. They whispered that Amara had a big head for someone with an empty pocket. But Amara did not care about whispers. When young men came to ask for Amara's hand, honest men, hardworking men, men with calloused hands just like the ones Amara hated, Amara sent every single one away. "I cannot marry struggle," Amara told Mama Grace one evening. "I have already lived struggle. I want to rest." Mama Grace looked at Amara for a long time without speaking. Then she said, softly, "My daughter, not every rest is peaceful. Some beds look soft on top but have stones underneath." Amara smiled, kissed Mama Grace on the cheek, and walked away. Those words meant nothing then. They would mean everything later. Ada never complained. Ada never dreamed of mansions or diamonds. Ada woke up early, fetched water, cooked, swept, and still found time to laugh and sing. Watching Ada made Amara feel two things at the same time, love and frustration. "How can you be happy like this?" Amara asked Ada one night as they lay side by side on their thin mattress. Ada turned and smiled a gentle smile. "Because I am grateful, sister. Gratitude makes any place feel like a palace." Amara stared at the cracked ceiling above and whispered, "I want a real palace." And somewhere in the darkness of that small room, Fate was already listening. But before we go any further, if you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on your notification bell. Because the kind of stories we tell here, you do not want to miss a single one. Now, let us get into it. Damian did not arrive with noise. That was the first strange thing about him. Most wealthy men Amara had seen before announced themselves, loud cars, loud music, loud laughter. But Damian arrived one Sunday afternoon in a black car so clean it looked like it had never touched dust. No music. No horn. No noise. Just silence, and a driver who opened the door without being asked. Damian stepped out wearing a simple white shirt and dark trousers, nothing flashy, nothing loud. Yet everything about him spoke of money. The kind of money that did not need to shout. The kind of money that had been around so long, it became comfortable with silence. Amara saw Damian from the window and felt something move in the chest, not love, not yet, but recognition. This, Amara thought, is what I have been waiting for. Damian had come through a family connection, a distant cousin who knew Papa Emeka. He sat in their small sitting room and spoke calmly, politely, never once looking down at the worn-out chairs or the faded curtains. He spoke to Mama Grace with respect. He spoke to Papa Emeka like a son. And when Damian's eyes finally found Amara's face across the room, Damian smiled, slow and quiet, like someone who already knew how the story would end. Amara's heart did something embarrassing. It jumped. Not because Damian was the most handsome man ever seen, but because behind those calm eyes, Amara could see it: comfort, safety, a life without firewood and smoke and cracked heels. Amara smiled back. The courtship was short. Damian came 3 more times, brought gifts each visit, nothing cheap, nothing loud. Fresh fruits in a fine basket. A soft shawl for Mama Grace. A bottle of good wine for Papa Emeka. And for Amara, a single white flower placed quietly in both hands with the words, "Simple things can carry great meaning." Amara looked at that flower and thought it was romantic. Later, Amara would understand it was a warning dressed as poetry. Papa Emeka pulled Amara aside after Damian's 3rd visit and said, "This man is too quiet. Quiet water runs deep, my daughter. Make sure you know what lives at the bottom before you swim." Amara laughed softly. "Papa, you worry too much. He is rich and he is kind. What else is there to know?" On the 4th visit, Damian proposed. No big ceremony. No crowd. Just Damian, sitting across from Amara in that small sitting room, placing a ring on the table between them, a ring so beautiful it made the whole room look poor by comparison. "I would like you to be my wife," Damian said. Simple. Calm. Final. Amara stared at the ring. Amara stared at Damian. And in that moment, every warning, every whispered prayer from Mama Grace, every worried look from Papa Emeka, all of it dissolved like sugar in hot water. Amara picked up the ring, slipped it onto one finger, and said, "Yes." Ada, watching from the doorway, said nothing. But later that night, Ada held Amara's hand tight and whispered, "Please be careful, sister." Amara squeezed back and smiled. "I will be fine." That was the last truly peaceful night Amara would know for a very long time. The mansion was everything Amara had ever dreamed of, and more. 3 floors. White marble floors so shiny that Amara could see a reflection walking on them. A staircase that curved like something from a film. Chandeliers hanging from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls of light. A kitchen so big and so modern that for a moment, Amara forgot about hating cooking, because this kitchen looked like it belonged in a magazine, not real life. There were 5 rooms, 3 sitting areas, a garden behind the house full of flowers Amara could not even name. And the bed, oh, the bed. So soft, so wide, so white, Amara lay down on it the first evening and felt tears gather in both eyes. Not sad tears. Overwhelmed tears. I made it, Amara thought. I finally made it. Damian showed Amara around the house on the first evening, walking slowly, pointing things out calmly. The staff, a cook, 2 housekeepers, a driver, all bowed their heads when Damian passed. Amara walked beside Damian feeling like a queen who had finally found the right throne. There was a room for reading, a room for watching films on a screen bigger than the entire wall of the old family home. There was a wardrobe already filled with clothes in Amara's size, dresses and shoes Amara had only ever seen in catalogs. "How did you know my size?" Amara asked, surprised. Damian smiled that slow, quiet smile. "I pay attention," he said. And then he walked ahead, and for just 1 second, just one, something cold moved through Amara's chest. But the feeling passed quickly. Amara pushed it away. That first night, after dinner, a dinner cooked by someone else, served on plates that felt too beautiful to use, Damian sat across from Amara and folded both hands on the table. "I need to tell you one thing," Damian said. The calmness in the voice made Amara sit straighter. "There is a room on the 3rd floor. At the end of the corridor. It has a black door. Damian paused. That room is always locked. You are never to open it. Not for any reason. Not ever. Amara waited for more, for an explanation, a story, a reason. But Damian simply stood up from the table, said good night, and walked upstairs. No anger. No raised voice. No threat. Just those words, delivered like a quiet law. And somehow, the calmness made it 10 times more frightening than shouting ever could have been. Amara lay in that beautiful white bed that night with both eyes wide open. The ceiling above was painted cream, and a small chandelier hung in the center, casting pale gold light across the room. Everything was perfect. Everything was soft. Everything was exactly what Amara had always wanted. But in the mind, the locked room sat like a stone. Why? Amara kept asking in silence. What is behind a black door that a man does not want his own wife to see? Amara turned over, pulled the soft covers tighter, and told the heart to be quiet. I am not here to ask questions, Amara whispered to the darkness. I am here to rest. But the heart had already asked the question. And questions, once born, do not die easily. The first 2 weeks felt like living inside a dream that had not yet decided to turn dark. Amara ate well, slept long, wore beautiful clothes, and did absolutely nothing that felt like work. The cook prepared breakfast every morning. The housekeeper cleaned every room. The driver took Amara anywhere without question. Amara called Ada every day, sometimes twice, describing everything in delicious detail. Ada, the bathroom is bigger than our whole house back home. The soap smells like fruit. The towels are so soft I want to cry. Ada would laugh on the other end of the phone, a quiet, happy laugh. I am glad you are well, sister, Ada would say. But Amara noticed Ada never said I am glad you are happy. There was a difference. Amara did not think about that difference then. But it stayed somewhere in the back of the mind, quiet and waiting. On the 15th day, Amara noticed the phone calls. Damian would receive a call in the middle of dinner and stand up immediately, leaving the food untouched, walking to a corner of the house where the voice dropped to a whisper. Sometimes the calls came at midnight. Amara would wake to find the other side of the bed empty and cold, and from somewhere downstairs, the low sound of Damian talking, slowly, carefully, in a voice that had no warmth in it at all. Amara once crept to the top of the stairs and listened, but could only catch broken pieces, the shipment, and they cannot trace it back, and make sure there is nothing left. Amara crept back to bed with a heart that had started, quietly, to be afraid. Then came the visitors. Men Amara had never seen before, men who did not smile, did not make small talk, did not look at Amara directly. They came in the evening, sometimes in groups of 2 or 3, and Damian would take them to the far end of the house, never to the sitting room, never to the dining room, always somewhere private, somewhere behind closed doors. Amara tried once to bring them tea, the way a good wife might. The moment Amara appeared at the doorway with the tray, every man in the room went completely silent. Damian looked up, and for just a flash, just one terrible flash, there was something in those calm eyes that was not calm at all. Thank you, Damian said quietly. Leave it there. Amara set the tray down, walked out, and had the door close firmly behind. That night, Amara did not sleep at all. The days grew heavier. The mansion, which had once felt like freedom, began to feel like something else. Amara began counting the rooms Damian visited. Began noticing which doors were always closed. Began watching the staff, their eyes, their movements, the way they never spoke unless spoken to, and even then, said as little as possible. One afternoon, Amara found one of the housekeepers, a young woman named Tola, staring at nothing in the corridor. Are you all right? Amara asked. Tola blinked, looked at Amara, then looked away quickly. Yes, madam. I am fine. But the hands were trembling. Amara reached out and touched Tola's arm gently. Tola flinched, then leaned in very close and whispered 3 words before walking quickly away. 3 words that changed everything. 3 words that made the blood go cold. Please be careful. For 7 days after Tola's warning, Amara tried to be a good, obedient wife. Amara focused on the food, the clothes, the soft bed, the garden walks in the morning. Amara called Mama Grace and told her everything was fine, using a voice practiced in front of the bathroom mirror until it sounded almost true. Amara even tried to talk to Damian more, asking about his work, his childhood, his family. Damian answered every question with exactly enough words to close the conversation. Never too little to seem rude. Never enough to reveal anything real. Every answer was a wall with a polite face painted on it. And each evening, after dinner, Damian would disappear, sometimes for hours, and Amara would sit alone in that vast, beautiful, suffocating house, listening to the silence and feeling it press down like a heavy hand. The locked room called to Amara the way a wound calls to a hand, not because touching it is wise, but because something deep and human cannot leave a mystery alone. Amara began standing outside the black door. Just standing. Pressing both palms flat against the wood and feeling nothing. No sound. No warmth. No cold. Just the heavy stillness of something waiting to be found. The door had a single keyhole, old-fashioned, like it did not belong in such a modern house. Amara knelt once and peered through it but could see only darkness. Whatever the room held it quietly. But on the 9th night, everything changed. Damian left the house at 11 in the evening, taking the driver and 2 of the strange visiting men. No explanation. Just the usual quiet nod at Amara from the doorway, the usual "come, I will be back," and then the black car sliding away into the night like a shadow leaving its owner. Amara stood at the bedroom window and watched the car disappear. Then turned around. The house was empty except for the cook downstairs. The housekeeper had gone home for the evening. Tola had not come in that day, which itself felt wrong. Amara walked slowly, step by step, to the 3rd floor. The corridor was long and lit only by a single wall light at the far end. The black door stood at the end of it like a full stop at the end of a sentence that made no sense. Amara found the key inside Damian's bedside drawer, tucked beneath a small notebook, almost hidden, but not hidden enough from a person who had started paying attention. The hand trembled as the key slid into the lock. The heart hammered so loud it seemed the whole house could hear it. Amara took 1 breath. 2. Then turned the key. The lock released with a soft, tired click, like it had been waiting. The door swung open. The smell came first, old paper, something metallic, something that made the stomach turn. Then the eyes adjusted to the dark and found the light switch. The room flooded with pale light. And Amara stood in the doorway and saw everything, and understood, with total and absolute horror, that the soft life had just become the most dangerous thing in the world. Wait, before we find out what is behind that door, do me a quick favor. If this story has you on the edge of your seat right now, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a story like this again. Okay, now let us open that door together. The room was not what imagination had built. There was no monster. Nobody. No fire. What was in that room was quieter than all of those things, and far more deadly. Shelves lined every wall, filled with files, folders, photographs, and stacked bundles of foreign currency. A large table in the center held maps with locations marked in red, a laptop that glowed faintly even in standby mode, and beside it, a single open folder. Amara walked to the table with both legs shaking. The folder held photographs. Clear, printed photographs of transactions, of shipments, of men in positions of power caught in moments they would never want documented. And paper after paper of records of money moved through countries like water through a broken pipe, money from things that had no legal name. Amora's hands were shaking so badly the papers rattled. But it was the other shelf, the one behind the door, that made the breath stop completely. On it sat a row of small framed photographs. Women. 5 of them. Different faces, different ages, but something the same in every pair of eyes: hope. The kind of hope that arrives before it is crushed. Beneath each photograph was a name and a date. The last date on the last photograph was 18 months ago. Amara stared at those 5 faces for a long, long time. Tried to find them as people, a life, a story, a family somewhere wandering. And then Amara saw it, at the bottom of the shelf, pushed slightly back, a 6th empty frame. No photograph yet. Just the frame, waiting. And in the front of that frame, written on a small paper card in Damian's neat, calm handwriting, was Amara's own name. The room began to spin. Amara stumbled back, knocking into the table, sending paper sliding to the floor. The photographs of those 5 women scattered. The maps crumpled. And Amara stood in the middle of all that fallen paper and felt the full weight of the terrible truth crash down like a ceiling collapsing. The wealth was real, but it was soaked in things that could not be spoken about in daylight. The calm, the quiet, the soft voice, the slow smile, all of it was the surface of a very deep and very dark water. And those 5 women who had probably stood exactly here, in this room, with this same sick feeling in the stomach, they were gone. Not married somewhere else. Not divorced and living new lives. Gone. And the 6th empty frame had Amara's name on it. Amara backed out of the room, locked the door, returned the key to the drawer, and sat on the bedroom floor with both knees pulled to the chest. The mind was running in 17 directions at once. Call the police. But what if Damian had people inside the police? Run now. But where? The gates were locked at night and the guard at the gate was Damian's man. Call Papa. But Damian could track calls. Amara had noticed how thoroughly the house was wired with cameras. There was only one person to call. One person who had always been in the corner quietly, with steady hands and a faithful heart. Amara picked up the phone. Fingers barely working. Dialed. It rang twice. Ada, Amara whispered when the line connected. Voice broke completely. Ada, I need you. Please. I need you right now. Ada did not panic. That was the thing about Ada, even in crisis, Ada became more still, not less. Amara told Ada everything in a broken, whispering rush: the room, the files, the photographs, the 5 women, the empty frame with Amara's own name. On the other end of the phone, Ada listened without interrupting once. When Amara finished, the line was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then Ada said, "Are you safe right now?" "Yes." "He is not home yet." "Good. Listen to me carefully. Do not move anything in that room. Do not let him know you went inside. Act normal when he returns. I am coming tomorrow morning with Uncle Femi." Uncle Femi, their mother's brother, was a quiet, serious man who had worked for many years in government before retiring. A man who knew the right people and the right doors. "Ada," Amara's voice cracked again. "Ada, I was so foolish." "No," Ada said firmly. "You were human. Now be brave. That is all I need you to be. Just brave." The hours before Damian returned were the longest of Amara's life. Amara sat in bed with a book open on the lap, not reading a single word, just holding it, so that when footsteps sounded on the stairs, there would be a picture of peace, of calm, of a wife waiting quietly. Damian came in at 2 in the morning. Looked at Amara. Looked at the book. Said, "You are still awake." "I could not sleep," Amara said, and the voice only trembled a little. Damian nodded, disappeared into the bathroom, came out, and got into bed without another word. Within minutes, the breathing slowed and deepened into sleep. Amara lay perfectly still beside Damian in that enormous, beautiful bed and felt something no luxury could fix, real, bone-deep terror. But underneath the terror, something new was growing. Something that had always been inside but had been buried under years of dreaming about soft things. Strength. Ada arrived at 10 the next morning, dressed simply, carrying a small bag. Uncle Femi came in a second car, an ordinary-looking car with two men inside who wore plain clothes but had the careful, watchful eyes of people trained to be careful and watchful. Amara had told Damian at breakfast that a cousin was visiting. Damian showed no suspicion. Simply nodded, said he had meetings all day, and left. The moment the black car pulled out of the gate, Amara opened the front door and fell into Ada's arms shaking. Ada held tight, both arms wrapped firm and sure, and said nothing for a moment. Just held. Then, gently, "Come. We have to move quickly." Uncle Femi and his men went upstairs. Amara gave them the key from the drawer. They entered the locked room. What they found confirmed everything and more, enough, Uncle Femi said quietly, to bring walls down on powerful people. The plan was simple but it had to be fast. Uncle Femi would take copies of every document. His contacts would receive the evidence through channels that could not be traced back to Amara. And Amara had to be gone, completely, physically gone, before Damian returned home and found the room disturbed. "Take nothing from this house," Ada told Amara family. "No jewelry. No designer bags. No expensive clothing. We leave with what you came with." Amara looked around that room, at the beautiful wardrobe, the soft bed, the chandelier, the marble floors, and waited to feel grief. But there was no grief. There was only the clean, urgent desire to breathe free air again. Amara picked up the single bag brought on the wedding day, still mostly unpacked, and walked to the door. Ada took Amara's hand. Together they walked down the curving staircase, through the marble foyer, out the front door, and did not look back once. By evening, everything moved fast, the way things do when truth finally decides to run. Uncle Femi's contacts worked with a speed that felt almost impossible. By nightfall, unmarked vehicles had surrounded the mansion. By morning, news was spreading of a large operation, shipments intercepted, financial records seized, powerful names caught in the net of documents that had sat behind a black door in a locked room. Amara was far away by then, sitting in the small sitting room of the family home, the same worn chairs, the same faded curtains, the same smell of Mama Grace's cooking drifting from the kitchen. But this time, the smallness of the room did not feel like poverty. It felt like the most solid, real, safe thing in the world. Mama Grace sat beside Amara and did not say "I told you so." She simply held Amara's face in both soft hands and looked for a long time, checking every part of that face the way a mother does when counting that a child has returned whole. Papa Emeka heard the story without speaking. When Amara finished, Papa sat very still, then reached across and patted Amara on the knee, once, twice, the way he had done since childhood when there were no words big enough. "You came back," Papa said finally. His voice was rough with held-back feeling. "That is all that matters. You came back." Those words cracked something open inside Amara that had been locked up tighter than any room in any mansion. Amara wept, properly, fully, without holding anything back, in a way that had not happened in years. Not the controlled tears of someone ashamed to be seen struggling. Real tears. Cleaning tears. The kind that wash out fear and foolishness and leave something cleaner underneath. Ada sat on the other side and held the hand the whole time, saying nothing, being everything. Days passed. The news carried stories about Damian, or rather, about the name behind the calm face and the slow smile. Transactions across many countries. Evidence of things that made decent people turn away from their screens in disgust. The 5 women in those photographs became part of a larger story, families who had been searching, authorities who had been circling, a web that had been patient and careful and finally snapped. Amara gave one formal testimony to Uncle Femi's contacts and was then removed from any further visibility, protected, unnamed in any public record. The mansion was seized. The cars were taken. The beautiful wardrobe, the chandeliers, the marble floors, none of it belonged to anyone decent now. All of it was evidence. All of it was ash dressed up as gold. Amara sat one afternoon in the old compound and watched Ada hanging laundry on the line, moving with that easy, grateful rhythm that had always been Ada's way. The sun was hot. The ground was red. Somewhere nearby, Mama Grace was singing an old song over a pot on the fire. The smoke drifted into the air, calling softly. And for the first time in Amara's life, that smoke did not smell like suffering. It smelled like home. It smelled like truth. It smelled like the particular sweetness that only comes to people who have stood at the very edge of losing everything, and somehow, through grace and love and one brave sister, walked back from it. Amara breathed in deeply. And for the first time in a very long time, the breathing felt easy. Here is what nobody expected, including Amara. 3 weeks after returning home, a letter arrived. Plain envelope. No return address. Inside, a single photograph and a folded note. The photograph showed one of the 5 women from Damian's shelf, the most recent one before Amara. Her name, Amara had learned, was Chisholm. In the photograph, Chisholm was alive. Standing in a garden somewhere far away, thin and tired-looking, but alive, eyes open, sun on the face. The note beneath the photograph had 4 words, written in a shaking hand: he did not win. Amara held the photograph for a very long time. The other 4 women's fates were still being investigated, but this one had survived. Had escaped some time before Amara arrived, had been hiding, had somehow heard what happened and sent this. A message from one woman to the next. You are not alone. He did not win. But the second surprise came from somewhere nobody had looked. Tola, the young housekeeper who had whispered, "Please be careful," came to the family home one morning. Stood at the gate nervous and quiet. Ada brought Tola inside. And Tola told the full story with shaking hands wrapped around a cup of tea. Tola had worked in that house for 2 years. Tola had seen things. Had been warned, threatened, kept silent by fear. But after Amara's escape and the collapse of everything, Tola had gone to the authorities too. Independently. Quietly. With evidence of her own that she had been secretly keeping. It was Tola's additional information that had helped locate Chisholm. Tola, young, poor, nobody powerful, had been braver than anyone in that mansion had ever given her credit for. Amara looked at Tola across the table and felt something shift permanently in the chest. Quiet people, Amara thought, are not weak people. And then, the twist that rewrote everything. Among the seized assets and the unraveling of Damian's operation, the authorities found something unexpected in the financial records. A legal inheritance, separate from the criminal wealth, untouched, properly documented, belonging to Damian's first legitimate family decades ago. Through a complicated chain of legal events too long to fully explain, a portion of that legitimate inheritance was eventually directed toward the families of those harmed in the case. It was not a fortune. It was not a mansion or a luxury car or a diamond ring. But it was enough to build a small proper shop for Papa Emeka, enough to fix the roof of the family home, enough to send Ada to the nursing school Ada had quietly dreamed of for 3 years without ever once complaining about the impossibility. Justice, when it finally moves, sometimes moves in shapes nobody predicted. Amara stood at the doorway of the family home on the last evening of that long season and looked out at the compound. The sun was going down in colors that had no name, orange bleeding into rose bleeding into a purple so deep it looked like velvet draped across the sky. Ada was inside, bent over nursing school forms with a lamp and a pencil. Mama Grace was humming. Papa Emeka was laughing at something on the old radio. And Amara, standing there in simple clothes, no diamonds, no marble under the feet, no chandelier overhead, felt something arrive in the chest that all the luxury in that mansion had never once managed to deliver. Peace. Real, clean, rooted peace. The kind that does not depend on what is in the wardrobe or who is waiting with a slow, dangerous smile. Amara whispered into the warm evening air, quietly, so only the sky could hear, Mama was right. Not every soft life is safe. And not every humble life is poor. The sun finished setting. The stars came out. And Amara, finally, fully, freely, was home. A life built on comfort alone has no foundation. True wealth is peace of mind, honest love, and a clean conscience, things no mansion can buy and no locked room can hide. And that is the story of Amara. A girl who chased comfort and found danger. Who lost a mansion but saved her life. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it made you feel something real, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Like this video. Subscribe if you have not already. And come back, because the next story we have for you is even more powerful than this one. See you there.